The sun rose gently over the fields of Lancaster County, brushing the rolling hills and tidy farmsteads in a golden hue. Roosters crowed in harmony with the sounds of hooves striking gravel. A modest black buggy moved slowly down the country road. The man inside wore a wide-brimmed straw hat, a plain buttoned shirt, and suspenders. His thick brown beard flowed with the breeze. No mustache. That was their way. His hands, calloused from years of labor, held the reins loosely. He wasn't in a rush. Amish never were. That morning, he had business in town, not for butter or tools or grain. Something more official. He had been summoned, and though he hadn't told anyone, not even his closest brethren, this was part of something much bigger than a simple errand. Miles away from his peaceful community, the concrete roads widened. The air thickened with city buzz, and with that, suspicion. As he crossed into the town limits, riding quietly, the engine of a state patrol car suddenly roared behind him. Red and blue lights lit the morning haze. He stopped calmly, reached into the buggy's side pouch for his leather-bound ID folder, but paused. The officer stepped out fast. Loud boots, loud voice, loud anger. "What are you doing here?" barked the officer, a thick man with mirrored sunglasses and clenched fists. His name tag-read Keller. His hand hovered dangerously close to his holstered weapon. "You Amish folk don't belong on this road." Thought this was some kind of stunt. The Amish man said nothing at first, not because he was afraid. He had seen far worse in life. He just didn't speak until it was needed. That was the Amish way. Let temper cool before tongue moves. "I have an appointment," he said softly. "Don't get smart with me." Officer Keller stepped closer. "You people think you're better than us, living your old world fairy tales, looking down on the rest of us like we're sinners. You think you're pure? Huh?" The Amish man looked up slowly, calm, measured, but not intimidated. "I do not judge," he replied. Keller's eyes narrowed. "Get out the buggy. Now." Without protest, the man stepped down. Dust rose around his boots. He was a head taller than the officer, but didn't make it known. He stood with humility. Keller circled him, inspecting like he was a threat. "What's your name?" he demanded. The man reached into his coat pocket slowly, deliberately, and held out the folder. "You may want to look closely, officer." Keller snatched it, flipped it open. His eyes froze. The smirk melted. The sweat on his brow thickened. Because on that ID was not a farmer's name, not a carpenter's badge. It was a federal seal. But the Amish man simply stood there, peaceful as ever, his eyes not blinking once. Keller stared at the ID in disbelief. The shiny emblem of the Department of Justice stared back at him. His lips moved, silently reading the name and title stamped in bold black letters. Special Agent, Division of Internal Affairs. He blinked twice, then again. What is this?" he muttered, eyes flickering up to the man's face and back to the badge. The Amish man didn't move, didn't smirk, didn't gloat, just waited. "I asked you a question." Keller's voice was sharper now, but there was a tremble underneath it. "What is this? Some kind of prank? You dressing up like this to trick people?" "No trick," the man replied. "That identification is valid. You are welcome to radio your department for confirmation. My name is not important, but my job is." Keller hesitated. His hand dropped from his belt. "You don't look like no agent," he muttered, stepping back. "That's the point," the man said calmly. "You weren't supposed to know." There was silence between them. Only the distant hum of tires rolling down a nearby highway. A bird cawed in the distance. "You were watching me?" Keller asked, the accusation half-hearted. "I observe," the Amish man replied, brushing some dust off his sleeve. "That's my role. To watch, to report, to investigate abuses of power, especially by those wearing a badge." Keller's jaw tightened. "This ain't fair. You're dressing up like some farmhand, riding him like you're part of them. I am part of them, the man interrupted, voice still low but sharp now. I was born Amish, raised by these values. I simply chose to serve in a different way. Keller's eyes darted back to the ID. So what now? You gonna write me up? Call your friends. The Amish man looked him square in the face. No anger, just truth. I don't need to call anyone. This stop is already recorded. You activated your dash cam when you flipped those lights. You verbally threatened a citizen. You profiled him. You attempted intimidation. That's enough for review. Keller stepped back further. You're not going to ruin me over one stop. The man didn't move. It's not about ruining anyone. It's about holding to the oath you took. To serve and protect, not to bully and assume. Keller looked like he wanted to say more, but no words came. Finally, the man spoke again. I have somewhere to be. You may return to your post, Officer Keller. The officer stood there, breathing heavy. His hands fidgeted, unsure whether to salute, apologize, or argue. But the Amish man simply turned, climbed into his buggy, and gently flicked the reins. The horse trotted forward, peaceful, silent, leaving a cloud of truth behind. Officer Keller stood alone on the roadside long after the buggy disappeared. Sweat rolled down his neck, soaking into his collar. His stomach twisted, not with guilt, but with fear. That man wasn't just anybody. He had real power, and Keller had just threatened him like he was nothing more than a wandering nobody. As the wind picked up, Keller climbed into his patrol car, slammed the door shut, and turned off the siren. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. His face looked different now, smaller, exposed. He didn't speak a word on the radio, didn't file a report. Instead, he drove straight to the station, hoping to disappear into routine like the encounter never happened. But by noon, whispers had already reached the precinct. Did you hear about Keller? Word is he stopped some kind of Fed. Internal affairs. Dressed plain. Testing him or something. By 3 p.m., the captain called him in. The room was still, air thick with quiet judgment. Keller sat stiffly, trying to act casual. It was just a misunderstanding, he muttered. The captain folded his arms. Was it? Because the way I hear it, you pulled over a man without cause. Threatened him. Called him names. All while he was on official business. And undercover. I didn't know who he was, Keller argued. The captain leaned forward. That's exactly the problem, Keller. You shouldn't treat anyone like that, regardless of who they are. Keller's mouth opened, but no defense came. The captain dropped a folder on the desk. Inside were stills from the dashcam video, screenshots, transcripts, a printed version of the federal badge Keller had glanced at too quickly. There was no denying it now. We've been told to cooperate fully with the agent. He's running a wider investigation, the captain said coldly. He's already requested your past reports and body cam footage from the last 6 months. Keller's throat went dry. He's targeting me. He's doing his job, the captain replied flatly. Meanwhile, miles away, the Amish man had parked his buggy in a discreet garage on the edge of town. From behind a hidden wall, he stepped out of his plain clothes and into a dark suit. No tie, just a clean black coat, crisp shirt beneath. He didn't enjoy doing things this way. Disguise, surveillance. But experience had taught him. Some truths are only revealed when people think you're powerless. He sat down at a desk, opened a laptop, and clicked open a file titled Officer Keller Preliminary Review. Beneath it, dozens of tabs, dozens of names. Keller was just one among many. The Amish man leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the screen. His beard still framed his strong jaw, a symbol of both tradition and quiet strength. But now it also framed justice. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't even punishment. It was exposure, and it was only the beginning. The small office was lit only by a desk lamp. The walls were bare. No awards, no pictures, No flags, just shelves stacked with files, some faded, others new. The Amish man sat at his desk, the only sound in the room the quiet clicking of keys beneath his fingers. He moved with purpose. Each keystroke logged details, observations, timestamps, a true record of what had occurred on the road that morning. His writing was precise, devoid of emotion, but rich in facts. Not once did he describe how the officer had made him feel. Feelings were for another time. Right now, truth had to stand alone. He paused for a moment, rubbed his eyes, then reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small black book with a worn leather cover. Inside were handwritten notes, thoughts, scriptures, lines in Pennsylvania Dutch and English. Words of peace, words of strength. He didn't belong to either world fully. In the Amish world, he was seen as different, too involved with the outside, too modern, too secretive. In the government world, he was an oddity, a relic, a man who didn't use a phone or drive a car, a man who refused hotel rooms and instead slept in barns or rented a cot above a bakery when on assignment. Still, both worlds needed him, because no one else could do what he did. No one else could walk into an old wooden chapel on Sunday, listen to hymns in harmony, then ride into the city Monday morning to dismantle corruption. His upbringing had taught him one thing: humility is louder than pride. He didn't need a badge to shout who he was. He needed only the truth. His phone buzzed softly, a secure line. He picked it up, waited. A voice spoke. Update on Keller? He replied calmly, filed the report. Review underway. Found 2 other complaints in previous records, filed by civilians. Uninvestigated. I've flagged them. You want to take it further? Not yet, he said. I want to see if he'll correct course now that he knows he's being watched. Do you think he will? There was a pause. The Amish man looked at a photo on his desk, a photo of a barn. His childhood home. Simple, peaceful. He said, men like Keller act tough until they see consequence. Some learn, others crumble. I'll give him one chance. The voice on the line nodded. Understood. We'll hold back disciplinary for now. The call ended. He placed the phone down and walked over to a wooden bench along the wall. He knelt, closed his eyes, and whispered a short prayer. Not for punishment, not for victory, but for wisdom, for clarity. Then he stood, adjusted his hat, and walked out of the office. Back into the world. His world. A world that needed watching. And the next name on his list was waiting. It was a quiet Thursday morning at the precinct. Phones rang softly. Officers milled around with coffee in hand. Paperwork tucked under arms. Laughter echoing faintly from the break room. But the mood changed the moment the tall, bearded man in plain black stepped through the front doors. His posture was upright, calm, a black coat wrapped neatly around his broad frame. The only thing louder than his silent presence was the stunned reaction of Officer Keller, who stood frozen at the copier, a fresh report still hanging from his hand. Heads turned. Conversation stopped. It wasn't every day someone walked in looking like an Amish preacher, only to be recognized by the brass as a federal agent. The desk sergeant stood up. "Can I help you, sir?" The man nodded once. "I'm here for the audit records. The ones I requested. They should be prepared." "Why, yes." "One moment." The sergeant fumbled, eyes flicking nervously to Keller, who now pretended to read something intensely. The Amish man didn't look at him. Not yet. He remained still as the documents were handed to him in a brown envelope, heavy with paper. His name wasn't on the label, just an internal case number. That was enough. Captain Morales came down from the office upstairs, walking with the stiffness of someone trying to look calm under pressure. "Agent," he greeted, "didn't expect you in person. I prefer to see the environment," the man replied. "Files are one part of the story. Atmosphere is another." Keller turned, trying to make an exit, but stopped short when the man's voice calmly said, "Officer Keller, a moment, please." The room went dead silent. All eyes on him. Keller's throat tightened. He turned slowly, walked toward the man. "Yes, sir." The Amish man gestured to a nearby conference room. In private. Once inside, the door closed quietly behind them. The man placed the folder on the table, but didn't open it. He looked Keller dead in the eye. "I'm not here to humiliate you," he said, his voice firm yet strangely gentle. "I'm not here to end your career, unless you continue to prove you deserve it." Keller stayed quiet, arms stiff by his sides. You judge a man based on clothing, background, and lifestyle. You made assumptions. You gave threats. You showed the world what's inside you, without even realizing it. Keller flinched. I didn't know." "Exactly," the man cut in. "That's the point. You shouldn't need to know someone's title to treat them with respect." There was a long pause. The air felt heavy, not with rage, but with truth. Then the man said, "I will be watching you closely. Your reports, your conduct, your stops. One more slip, just one, and this will go from warning to report. From desk meeting to court hearing." Keller nodded, a quick jerk of the head. "I understand. I hope you do," the man said, "because I don't believe in destroying men who can change. But I don't protect men who refuse." He picked up the file, turned, and left the room. Keller stood alone, breathing hard, shaken not by threat, but by the kind of authority that didn't scream, but whispered and still shook your soul. Back in Lancaster County, the horse trotted along the gravel road, its hooves tapping out a steady rhythm like the ticking of a large, quiet clock. The Amish man, now back in his plain shirt, suspenders, and straw hat, sat peacefully in the buggy, the weight of the city behind him, the stillness of home just up ahead. He didn't look back. That part of the job was done. For now, children ran across fields, their laughter bouncing through the open sky. Laundry swayed on lines stretched between porches and barn doors. Life here was slow, but never stagnant. Every small task had meaning. Every hour served purpose. As he turned down a narrow path flanked by wildflowers and fence posts, he passed Eli's farm. Eli, his neighbor since childhood, a man of wide smiles and weathered hands. Eli lifted his hand in greeting. "You've been gone a few days, brother," he said as he approached the buggy. The Amish man nodded. "We're called." Eli raised an eyebrow. "The kind you don't talk about?" Another quiet nod. Eli leaned on the buggy's side. "You know, sometimes I wonder what it's like, what you see out there, in their world. The yelling, the speed, the anger. You don't miss it, do you?" The man looked down at his hands. "Not for a second," he said. "But you go anyway." "I go," he replied, "because somebody must." Eli nodded slowly, as if weighing those words like a bale of hay. "We're grateful you come back every time, even if we don't understand all of it." The man gave a rare smile. "I come back because this is what reminds me why I do it." As they spoke, another buggy passed behind them, and from it waved a young girl with wide blue eyes and golden hair in a bonnet. She waved with both hands, like the world had no weight, like she didn't know yet what cruelty might one day find her. The man watched her pass. "She doesn't know," he whispered. Eli glanced over. "Know what?" The Amish man looked toward the road. "That people like Officer Keller exist. That hate can sit behind a badge. That sometimes justice wears a beard and a straw hat." Eli sighed. "Maybe it's good she doesn't know." "Not yet. Maybe," the man said. "But one day she'll have to. And when that day comes, I pray the world a little better than it was yesterday." He clicked the reins, and the horse moved forward once more, the road stretching out quiet and calm. Behind him lay a city full of hidden rot. Before him, a farm needing fences mended. Two worlds, one man, always walking between them. Night fell softly over the Amish man's modest farmhouse. A single lantern burned on the kitchen table, casting gentle light over a wooden chair, a bowl of soup gone cold, and a thick folder filled with names. He had returned to peace, but peace didn't mean rest. He sat in silence, flipping through old files. Case notes, reports of misconduct, stories buried behind signatures and red tape. One name kept surfacing, a young man from 2 years ago, stopped for no reason, harassed, no badge number written down, no body cam turned on, but the boy remembered the officer's face. It had been Keller. The man closed the folder and leaned back. His chair creaked, echoing in the still house. Outside, the crickets chirped in harmony. But inside his chest, something stirred. Not anger. No, he had long let go of that. It was something else. Regret. He had seen it before. Officers like Keller didn't appear overnight. They grew, fed by silence, watered by unchecked authority. And now, years later, here he was chasing a problem that could have been stopped sooner. The man stood and walked outside into the night air. The sky above stretched wide and star-filled. No sirens, no streetlights, just heaven and earth divided only by clouds. He looked up, thought of his father. His father had been a man of few words, but strong ones. A blacksmith, hands thick with calluses and heart thick with patience. He never raised his voice, never raised his hand in anger. But when injustice came to their farm once, a neighbor cheated them on a hay deal, his father didn't shout or threaten. He simply showed up, quiet, calm, and laid out the truth in front of the man's family. That alone had been enough. That moment stayed with him. Truth didn't need force. It just needed to be seen. He breathed in the cool air, then turned back inside. There was more work to do. In the corner of the room sat a locked drawer. He unlocked it now, pulled out a single tape, marked with nothing but a date. March 14th, the night of a fatal stop in another county. A stop no one had ever been held responsible for. The Amish man slid the tape into a portable player. Static hissed. Then came voices. Harsh, fast, a man begging. Then silence. Then a laugh. Then a voice. The same voice he had heard earlier that week. Keller. His hand gripped the table. So it went deeper, further back than even he thought. He stood and picked up his coat. The night wasn't over yet. The stars still blanketed the sky when the Amish man rode his buggy through the outskirts of town, heading not to the police department this time, but toward the county archive building. A quiet place, tucked between a library and an abandoned post office, where forgotten paperwork collected dust and secrets went to sleep. He arrived just after midnight. No fanfare, no lights, just a lone key in his hand, one that had been given to him years ago by a former district attorney who believed in quiet justice. Inside, the building creaked with the weight of time. The walls smelled of old wood and older memories. He made his way to a locked cabinet in the back. It held reports too sensitive for digital systems, too inconvenient for the public eye. He unlocked it, pulled out the thick folder marked Internal Review, Officer Keller, 2021. As he read, his heart sank. The report was incomplete. Testimonies were missing. Pages cut short. One entire section blacked out with a thick marker. Witness names gone. Evidence misplaced. What remained were vague descriptions. Possible misconduct. No sustained findings. Victim declined further action. But the Amish man knew why victims declined. They weren't protected. And when the system shields its own, fear becomes the courtroom. He sat on the floor, cross-legged, flipping every page, every scribble margin. And then, tucked inside the back cover, was something forgotten. A complaint letter, handwritten, crumpled, never filed. It was from a mother of the boy Keller had stopped 2 years ago. She had begged the department to investigate, claimed her son came home bruised, shaken, and refused to speak for days. She'd given the officer's name, his badge number, even the exact time and location. But nothing had been done. Her handwriting trembled with desperation. At the bottom, it was signed, "A mother who still believes in right." He folded the letter gently, held it like something sacred, a truth lost in dust. He took out his notepad and began writing, not as an agent, not even as a man of law, but as someone who had seen too many mothers cry and too many sons silenced. He titled it, "Reopen Request, Keller Incident, March 2021. He knew it wouldn't be welcomed. People would push back, say it was old news, say it was over. But it wasn't. Justice doesn't have an expiration date. Outside, the sky was turning silver, morning creeping over the horizon. He closed the cabinet, locked it again, and stepped back out into the fresh air. He breathed deeply. The next chapter wouldn't be about warning Keller. It would be about showing the world who he really was. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the federal building downtown. Inside, behind tinted glass walls and brushed steel doors, the Amish man stood in front of a review panel, a quiet group of senior officers and attorneys, each one with a folder bearing his report. They didn't question his beard, his clothes, his background. Here, in this room, truth was the only uniform that mattered. "I'm submitting a formal request," he said calmly, "to reopen the 2021 case involving Officer Keller. I have new evidence, including a complaint that was never filed and a recovered audio recording from a patrol car that was intentionally archived without summary." The room remained silent. He placed the complaint letter, folded and yellowed, on the table in front of the panel. One of the attorneys reached out and gently unfolded it, her eyes scanning the shaky handwriting. The man continued, voice even but firm. This letter was written by a mother. She believed her voice would be heard. It wasn't. Her son was silenced, and the officer responsible walked away untouched. One of the men at the table asked, "Are you implying there was deliberate suppression?" "I'm not implying," he said. "I'm stating, and the audio confirms it." He clicked a small device. The room filled with static. Then the sounds of the 2021 stopped. The voice of a young man, afraid. Then the sound of Keller, mocking, shouting, pressing. And then that cruel, unmistakable laugh. It cut through the room like a blade. When it ended, no one spoke for several seconds. Finally, a woman from internal policy leaned forward. "What do you recommend?" "Immediate review of Officer Keller's entire career. Body cam footage, dash cam logs, civilian complaints, and a federal-level investigation into how this case was buried." The panel nodded. "You realize," the chairman said, "this will make waves. The department will push back." The Amish man leaned forward. "Then let them. Waves wash away filth." He left the building as the investigation was formally opened. Back at the precinct, Keller sat stiffly at his desk. A knock came. Two officers, internal affairs, walked in with grim expressions. "You're being placed on administrative leave, pending review," one said. Keller's face flushed. "You can't be serious." They handed him the order. The tape came back, the one from 21. Keller's mouth went dry. "He did this," he spat. "That Amish rat." The officers didn't respond. Keller stood, ripped off his badge, and dropped it on the desk with a clatter. As he walked out, every eye in the precinct followed. No one spoke. No one stopped him. He was no longer feared, just exposed. Outside, the wind blew steady through the trees. And somewhere down the road, a black buggy rolled on, slow and steady, moving through a world that still needed mending. Weeks passed. Keller's case hit local news. Quietly at first, then louder. News anchors used words like abuse, neglect, cover-up. The public was no longer silent. Neither were the families. 3 other victims came forward. One with a bruised jawbone, one with a broken wrist, one with shame too deep to speak without trembling. And in the center of it all was a man they couldn't name. The Amish man never gave interviews, never showed his face on camera, never raised his voice. But behind every headline, behind every justice served, his hand had moved. Silently, relentlessly. He sat beneath the shade of a tall oak tree now, back on his farm. The horse grazed nearby. A kettle steamed gently over a fire. It was evening, the air soft and forgiving. A young boy approached from the road, barefoot, cheeks red from running. "Sir," the boy asked, holding out an envelope. The man took it gently. Inside was a short note. "We thank you for your service. The review is complete. Officer Keller has been terminated, permanently barred from duty, and will face trial. Your actions helped others come forward. Federal Review Committee." He folded the letter slowly, then placed it in his pocket. No joy in his face, just quiet peace. A burden lifted. Behind him, Eli came up carrying 2 wooden chairs. "Thought you might want company," he said, placing one down. The Amish man nodded, sitting without a word. Eli looked at the fields, then at his friend. "They're talking about you, you know. In town, in the paper, even outside the county. I didn't do it for talk." "I know," Eli said, "but I heard one of the boys at the feed store say something funny. He said, 'There's a man who don't say much. Don't wear a badge. Don't carry a gun. Don't yell. But if you're crooked, he'll find you. Even if you're hiding behind a smile.'" The man chuckled softly. "Sounds like a ghost story. Sounds like justice," Eli replied. They sat in silence, the sun dipping lower. Somewhere in the distance, a mother was tucking her son in bed, no longer afraid that the wrong stop might cost him his future. Finally, Eli asked, "You ever going to tell him your name?" The Amish man looked out at the land, his land. Then he answered, "They don't need my name." He stood, adjusted his hat, and walked back toward the barn as dusk wrapped the fields in gold. But one thing was certain now. He was no longer just a quiet farmer in a buggy. He was a shadow with purpose, a watchman in plain clothes, a man the badge couldn't scare, because he never needed one to begin with.